When I went to work, when Dr. Yepes was still present after being reported, there were multiple mornings going in that I literally couldn't go into work without getting nauseous and throwing up in the parking lot and crying and being scared. There was many nights where I couldn't sleep the next day before work. I was constantly depressed, scared, angry that nobody was there to protect me or look out for my best interests. I think the anger and the resentment towards the employer came after the fact with the issue of them not taking me seriously or any of the other women seriously by still allowing Dr. Yepes to be present after knowing all of the horrible things he did to each of us. That's when the anger really started.
My advice to other women who have found themselves in a sexual harassment situation is, talk to somebody. I mean, if you don't feel comfortable right away talking to somebody in management, talk to somebody you're close to and let them know what's going on. Don't feel like you're alone. Don't feel like you are isolated. So many women and people who are sexually harassed feel like they're the only one.
This entire proceeding is ended.
With that gavel, Chairman Joseph Biden ended 3 of the most remarkable days in the history of the Congress. Senators investigating allegations of unwanted sexual advances by a Supreme Court nominee had waded out into uncharted and often seamy waters, hoping to arrive at the truth. But when the hearings ended at 2 o'clock this morning, 33 hours and 22 witnesses after they began, the Senate was right back where it started, having to weigh his word against hers. Anita Hill, a University of Oklahoma law professor, worked for Clarence Thomas during the early 1980s at the Department of Education and at the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. She appeared before the Senate Judiciary Committee to tell her story.
His conversations were very vivid. He spoke about acts that he had seen in pornographic films involving such matters as women having sex with animals and films showing group sex or rape scenes. He talked about pornographic materials depicting individuals with large penises or large breasts involved in various sex acts. On several occasions, Thomas told me graphically of his own sexual prowess. Because I was extremely uncomfortable talking about sex with him at all, and particularly in such a graphic way, I told him that I did not want to talk about these subjects.
Judge Clarence Thomas had appeared to be within days of confirmation to the Supreme Court when the Anita Hill story broke. Now he was forced to return to the Judiciary Committee to defend himself, and did so with a blistering attack against his accuser, his opponents, and against the committee itself.
In the fall of 1991, a stunned and confused nation watched a law professor charge a Supreme Court nominee with blatant sexual harassment on primetime television. Stunned because never before had there been this kind of media attention to sexual harassment. Confused because the lines can seem unclear and sexual harassment is inextricably aligned to perception. Shortly thereafter, the nightly news and national magazines carried stories of widespread sexual harassment and discrimination in the military. Those events brought to light something that millions of Americans already knew. Sexual harassment is a pervasive, destructive, social, legal, and ethical problem, and it is a problem which nurses have not escaped. Sexual harassment, a form of sex discrimination, is one of the most persistent and destructive problems in the U.S. workplace. While potentially a problem for both sexes, the majority of sexual harassment is from men to women, and few working women have not experienced sexual harassment. Although sexual harassment is clearly illegal, it continues despite the high cost to the employee and the harassed individual. And despite the protections of the law, many who have been harassed do not bring complaints. Sex role stereotyping, distribution of power, and socialization are among the chief factors contributing to sexual harassment. Filing charges can be humiliating. Victims may feel that their charges will be ignored or downplayed, or they may be accused of behavior that invited the offensive conduct. They may be ridiculed, face hostility or retaliation, poor work assignments, reduced hours, poor evaluations, or even the loss of a job. Still others don't know their rights and are confused about where the lines are drawn or simply don't know what to do. The Insider exclusive investigative news team discovered that nurses, like most women, rarely reported incidents of sexual harassment to their supervisors. The greater the nurse's distress, the less likely she is to report the incident. Sexual harassment is extremely costly in terms of both human dignity and human resources. Fortunately, the laws to protect nurses from sexual harassment are already on the books. Compliance, sound institutional policy, and nurses fully understanding their legal rights continue to be problems. What is clear is that sexual harassment is against the law. Since 1964, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act has prohibited discrimination in employment conditions because of an individual's sex. In 1976, it was acknowledged that Title VII also prohibits sexual harassment as a form of sex discrimination. Unlawful hostile environment harassment may occur even where there has been no tangible job detriment, but where sexually harassing conduct is so severe or pervasive that it alters an employee's working conditions. Nurses associations strive to eliminate sexual harassment for nurses in all work settings. First and foremost, they recommend that preventive measures be established. Today, the Insider exclusive goes behind the headlines in sexual harassment at work, Dana and Monica's stories, to examine how Benjamin Yormack, founder and managing partner, Yormack Employment and Disability Law, is representing his clients, all of whom have filed suit against Fawcett Memorial Hospital, the Charlotte Cardiovascular Institute, and a former Fawcett Hospital cardiologist, Dr. Cesar Yepes, who was arrested by the police and charged with battery. It's believed he has fled back to his native Colombia. Dana Jackson is a cardiac nurse and Monica Gibbs is a secretary at Fawcett Memorial Hospital, owned by Hospital Corporation of America. Their lawsuit states that at all material times, Fawcett Memorial Hospital and the Charlotte Cardiovascular Institute were aware of Dr. Yepes' sexual harassment and didn't do anything about it, and therefore are liable for their damages. Fawcett Memorial undertook to investigate the matter and interviewed witnesses, all of whom corroborated these victims' version of the facts, but somehow their investigation failed to conclude that Dr. Yepes had engaged in sexual harassment. The hospitals and the institute's inaction led these victims to be subjected to ridicule and a further hostile work environment after they reported the sexual harassment to the hospital. Ben Yormack has earned the highest respect from citizens and lawyers alike as one of the best trial lawyers in Fort Myers, in Naples, in Florida, and in the United States. His goals, not only to get justice for his clients, but to make sure that everyone is treated with equal respect and dignity as guaranteed under the Constitution of the United States. He has built a substantial reputation by consistently winning cases other law firms have turned down. His amazing courtroom skills and headline-grabbing success rate continue to provide his clients with the results they need and the results they deserve. This is the Insider Exclusive, live from Fort Myers, Florida.
Thank you.
Tell our audience a little bit about your law firm and what kind of cases you handle.
We're a boutique law firm in Southwest Florida that handles exclusively plaintiffs' employment and disability claims.
Mm-hmm. And generally, what kind of cases come across your desk?
Cases are race, gender, disability, discrimination and harassment cases, wage and hour cases, retaliation, and disability benefit cases as well.
You could choose to practice law representing some of these big employers, but you choose not to. Why do you represent the little guy?
Because the little guy is what makes America tick. The little guy is the engine of America for years and years. The people that are underrepresented, underfunded, and certainly undergunned when it comes to the law.
Mm-hmm. Today we are here talking about a case which took place at a hospital in a medical environment. Please tell our audience a little bit about what this case is all about.
Well, the case centers upon the actions of a doctor at a hospital in Port Charlotte, Florida. The doctor assaulted 3 nurses in the hospital, admitted his crimes, and was charged by the sheriff's office locally.
And when you say admitted, we actually have an audio tape at him at the, is it the sheriff's department?
Yes, it's the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office.
Admitting that he committed these assaults, right?
That's correct, yes.
We're going to listen to that right now.
With Christy Stover, did you grab her crotch and tell her that you want that happened? Okay. And that was where at in the hospital?
On the third floor in the escalator.
Tell me about the instance here with Dana. So you said you didn't rub her abdomen?
No. Like she's...
under her shirt. What about on top of her shirt?
No. I just hugged her in an elevator.
Hugged her in an elevator?
Yes.
So you didn't? Did you thrust your pelvis at her?
No. No. She's lying.
She's lying about a lot of it?
Yes.
And you said that it's kind of difficult finding him right now, or what?
Yes, prior to pleading guilty in his criminal case, it's believed that he fled to Colombia in South America, where he's originally from. We tried to effect service in the civil action, all 3 civil actions, but we have not been able to locate him at all.
Mm-hmm. Now, in the lawsuit, what are you alleging on behalf of your clients?
Sexually assaulted 3 nurses, that the hospital failed to conduct a proper investigation into those allegations brought by the nurses. But to make matters worse, and perhaps the most important social issue, is that the hospital knew that Dr. Yepes had a very bad history with sexual harassment and actual assaults in the workplace.
You discovered that he worked at another facility and he was removed from that facility or transferred for the similar kind.
At West Florida Memorial Hospital, and while there was a patient complaint and another nurse that also complained. West Florida Hospital is owned by the same company that owns Fawcett Memorial Hospital in Port Charlotte.
In cases like this, it takes a lot of courage for someone to come forward and file a complaint because they might have their job on the line, right?
There's no question. In corporate America, particularly with hospitals, doctors are valued more than nurses.
Mm-hmm.
It's more difficult in rural areas to get qualified doctors. And while Port Charlotte isn't rural, it's certainly not the urban megacenters of a Tampa or Miami. Fawcett Hospital put the doctors' interests ahead of my clients in their hiring of Dr. Yepes, and then failed to properly conduct any investigation into his background whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. Where is the case right now in terms of litigation? And what is your strategy that you're pursuing to be successful for your clients?
The case is presently pending in the U.S. District Court for the Middle District of Florida. Discovery is ongoing, which means document exchanges, depositions, etc. Trial date is expected in the summer of 2014. Mm-hmm. So beyond that, I can't really comment.
Okay. Today, we are fortunate to have some of your clients here today. So we're going to bring on one of them right now, Dana Jackson. Thank you so much for coming. I know this is a difficult position to be in. Tell our audience a little bit about the work environment that you had to work under when the doctor was there.
It was a very uncomfortable environment. It was difficult to be there and know that he was there given the circumstances and all that he has done.
Yeah.
Very uncomfortable in the aspect that you always felt that you were being watched very carefully and seeked after.
How did that affect your personal life?
It made me very closed off to family and friends, very depressed, emotionally unavailable for my spouse.
Yeah. When did you first decide that you should come forward and file a complaint with your employer?
We're being assaulted by the same man, and we're too afraid to come forward and say anything. They were just living with it.
And when you say assaulted, what exactly did he do?
He would go out of his way to make sexual advances towards them, either by touching them in inappropriate areas or making inappropriate comments.
Very same thing too, correct?
Yes, there are.
Something like, what, 20-some-odd women?
As far as I know of right now, yes, that would be an accurate statement.
Well, you're a very brave person for coming forward, because obviously there always is the possibility. Things, do they?
No, they do not.
What is your opinion of what the hospital did once you filed your complaint?
Once the complaint was filed, I really don't feel like they protected us or cared very much that we came forward with such a serious circumstance. I don't feel like they took any of us seriously.
Yeah, you're a cardiac nurse, right?
I am an intensive care nurse, yes.
Intensive care nurse. In the medical profession, do you find that there is sexual harassment quite a bit in hospital or medical environments?
Yes, it's quite frequent.
And why do you think that's so?
I think it's because of the authority level that the physicians believe that they have over the people that are underneath them, and they believe that they can get away with it, which is inappropriate.
What advice do you give women who are faced with similar circumstances about doing something about it?
The whole point of coming forward was to make sure that this didn't happen to another coworker or patient or visitor or volunteer or what have you. I would advise you to come forward and say something, because you'll be amazed at how many people you can wind up protecting in the end.
Well, we wish to thank you, and I want to thank you very much for being brave and coming forward. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
We are also pleased to have Monica Gibbs with us today. Welcome to the show, Monica. You work at Fawcett Hospital too, don't you? With Dana, unit secretary, and you've unfortunately had the same bad experience as Dana and many other women, correct? You had some unfortunate experiences with Dr. Yepes at the hospital, correct? And how did that affect your personal life?
Personally, it was very difficult. Going through nursing school at the time, and as my relationship suffered from it because of the publicity of it, and that it was involved with where I work, and my significant other was, very concerned with my work environment that I was working in. He wanted to go and speak to the doctor himself. He wasn't happy about the situation.
Yeah. Now, there were many women who he had sexually harassed and assaulted. Correct, Ben?
That's correct. Yes.
He was eventually arrested. Correct?
That's correct.
Charged.
Waiting.
Well, he's confessed. He's confessed.
He has confessed.
On the police interview, which we heard earlier.
Yes.
What do you have to say to employers who condone this kind of activity and don't do anything about it?
I have to say that, we're the backbone of what makes you tick. I think that the more you support all the facets of and your employers, the more it's going to benefit you, and the more that it's going to benefit everybody as a whole. I think that the big brother needs to, take a step back and realize that, we're important, and you just can't, disregard the important things that are happening to us.
Yeah, because this was taking place for a long period of time, wasn't it?
It was over a period of time. Yeah, that's correct.
What do you think of Ben, how Ben has handled your case for you and Dana so far?
I think Ben has done a really good job as far as our case is concerned. He's very down to earth. He's concerned with the things that we have to say and how it affects us. When we tell him that there are things that are our concerns, he definitely takes that into consideration.
What do you have to say to other women who find themselves in similar circumstances? What should they do?
I think that these women, they need to step forward, and they need to not be afraid of the bigger person, the doctor or the engineer or whoever is above them. I mean, whether it's women or it's men. I mean, sexual harassment is an important and a vital problem in America today. And I think that more women and more men, whoever it may be, that's being sexually harassed, it needs to be brought up and brought to light.
Well, my hat's off to you for coming forward, because you know, everybody's always concerned about their job, but
Absolutely.
You're doing the right thing, and you're set an example for other people who find themselves in similar unfortunate situations.
Yes.
I want to thank you for being on our show.
Thank you for having me.
Ben, what are some examples of sexual harassment?
Some examples would include where a supervisor makes romantic or sexual overtures towards a subordinate employee, and then that employee objects to it and reports it to Human Resources.
Not only talking, but also physical harassment, correct?
Certainly the most concerning are the physical actions that concern sexual harassment.
There are people out there that have been sexually harassed or are afraid to come forward, okay? What should they do if they feel they have been harassed? What is their first course of business?
Their first course of business should be to report the conduct of the sexual harasser to Human Resources, and that should be done. Once the complaint has been made, the employer has an absolute duty to investigate claims of sexual harassment and to properly protect the employees. That's what we allege that Fawcett Hospital has failed to do here.
Yeah, I hope everybody who is watching this program today, if they're in a difficult situation like this, they come forward to a lawyer like yourself to seek legal advice and possibly remedies for their situation.
Certainly.
Thank you very much for being on our show. Thanks for joining us. You can get more information about our guest and the issues at InsiderExclusive.com.